McDonald's se une al universo de Minecraft con uno de los 6 coleccionables cuando eliges entre una Big Mac o una orden de 10 McNuggets con la Spicy Nether Flame Sauce. Ahora disponible with a Minecraft Movie Meal. En McDonald's participantes por tiempo limitado. A Minecraft Movie, solo en cines.
Este episodio es patrocinado por Booking.com, el socio oficial de alojamiento de MLB, Major League Baseball. Booking.com, booking.yeah.
Ya empieza la primavera, lo que significa que podremos viajar dentro de los Estados Unidos con mucha más frecuencia. Y cuando viajo me gusta utilizar Booking.com.
Con la amplia variedad de alojamientos, Booking.com te facilita encontrar el lugar perfecto para ti, ya sea una casita acogedora de vacaciones, un hotel 5 estrellas o una cabaña en el bosque.
La primavera también marca el comienzo de la temporada de béisbol y estoy súper emocionado. Y no sé si sabías, pero Booking.com es el socio oficial de alojamiento de MLB.
Cuando voy a un partido de béisbol, una de mis partes favoritas es cuando el estadio completo canta esa canción que todos conocemos y amamos.
Por eso hoy tenemos una versión de esa canción súper especial para ti.
Dame un cuarto de hotel en Booking.com. Luego el juego de béisbol. 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strike, out.
Booking.com te quiere ayudar a convertirte en fan de cualquier ciudad de los Estados Unidos y además te da la oportunidad de ganarte $1,000 en crédito de viaje de Booking.com.
Visita ya mismo la cuenta de Instagram de Booking.com, @Booking.com y consulta la publicación del sorteo para obtener más detalles.
Booking.com.
Booking.yeah.
No es necesario realizar ninguna compra. Requisitos de elegibilidad.
Abierto a residentes de Estados Unidos mayores de 18 años.
Periodo de la promoción.
Del 26 de marzo al 13 de abril de 2025.
¿Dónde encontrar las reglas oficiales completas?
Todas las reglas están disponibles en la descripción de la publicación del sorteo.
I'm not gonna lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head, and if you don't act now, that idea is gonna leave, or maybe someone's gonna take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need, and Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.
This story is perhaps very short. My Uncle Miguel told it to me. It happened to him many years ago, around the year 2000. At that time, he was working at a construction site for which he had to take the highway every day. When they were very behind schedule, he had to stay until very late, working overtime. Most of the workers lived near the site. He was one of the few who had to come to the city every day. One of those nights, he stayed very late, later than usual. But they were very behind and they worked until their bodies gave out. After 11 at night, he took the highway to return home alone, as always. He remembered very well an exit, a detour that he didn't know where it led, or where it ended. A dirt road with a lamp at the entrance, where sometimes, when he passed by very early, he saw people waiting for transportation to the city. But at that hour, he didn't expect to see anyone. However, he did see a woman walking, moving away from the lamplight in the same direction as him toward the city. She was with a very small, thin girl walking by her side. They weren't holding hands. My uncle stopped. The woman had reminded him a lot of my grandmother. She even dressed similarly. He couldn't leave a poor woman there at that hour, so he stopped and asked her if she was heading to the city and offered to take them. He told her that at that hour no more transportation would pass by, that it was dangerous to walk on the highway. The woman turned to look at him with some distrust, as if examining him. My uncle told her that she could sit in the back seat because he had many things in the front one, and that was true. But he did it so the woman would feel more confident. Finally, she got in and told him just a little further ahead. But my uncle realized that when the woman got in, she was alone. For a moment he felt that he had hallucinated, that he had been confused by fatigue and darkness. "Don't worry, he's a good person," he heard the woman murmur in the back seat, and he asked her if she had said something. "No, son," the woman replied in a normal voice. "I'm just going a little further ahead." And it was only at that moment that my uncle noticed the woman's strange appearance. Somewhat dirty, unkempt, different from how women of that age typically are. He heard her murmur again as if she was talking to someone. He looked at her through the rearview mirror. She was there, but talking to herself. He even had to turn quickly to barely lose sight of the road, but he had to make sure no one else was there. "It's good that I found you, Mother. These aren't hours to walk alone. Why are you all alone at this hour?" He emphasized the word alone to see her reaction, to see if he could get some response from the woman. "One never walks alone if one has faith," he thought he heard her say. Even today, he's not sure he heard it. A kilometer further on, the woman told him she could be dropped off there. That's where she was going. My uncle stopped the car in the middle of nowhere, but as soon as he did, he managed to see another dirt road. Another road that he didn't know where it led, but it was in total darkness. "It looks very dark over there." "Mother, don't you want me to take you further?" The woman told him no, and thanking him and giving him her blessing, she got out of the car to start walking into the darkness. As soon as he saw her walking away again, my uncle couldn't see the girl again. A girl in a long, pink, very light dress was walking again by the woman's side. A woman who surely never walks alone. Good evening, community. Welcome to Tales of the Night, where this time we'll take the longest road, the one few dare to travel when night falls because highways have something, don't you think? Something that makes them different when the sun hides. Perhaps the silence, the loneliness of kilometers without a single light, without a living soul. Or maybe it's what has remained there waiting. Those who spend too much time at the wheel know it well. Truckers, bus drivers, night travelers. They all have a story to tell. Apparitions at the side of the road. Figures who ask for rides and disappear. Voices on the radio calling your name. Tonight, you will live those stories. My name is Uriel Reyes, and I invite you not to get lost in the fog that awaits us ahead. Please don't separate, because we're about to enter to Tales of the Night. My dad worked for over 30 years driving cargo transport. He knew a large part of the country's highways, crossing states, climates, and landscapes that few can see from the solitude of the wheel. He experienced everything on the road, good things, many bad ones, and some that simply cannot be explained. Strange apparitions, encounters with the impossible. But without a doubt, the most macabre thing that happened to him occurred one night when, coincidentally, he wasn't alone. On an occasion when my younger brother was accompanying him, he was a boy of just 9 years old and had always dreamed of traveling with Dad. For years he saw him leave at dawn, return days later with stories of endless roads, of people he met, of distant lights in the night. So when December vacation came and the opportunity to accompany him on a trip to Coatzacoalcos presented itself, he didn't think twice. It was his first trip in a trailer and he was very excited. The journey was long and hard. In fact, they encountered several accidents on the highway, which considerably delayed their arrival. By the time they were near their destination, it was very late at night. The highway was completely deserted, with barely one or another trailer passing in the distance. In that stretch, my brother was already asleep in the passenger seat, tired from the trip. While my dad drove in silence, focused on the road, focused on arriving as soon as possible until the child woke up with a start. My dad felt his movement without taking his eyes off the road. He asked if he was okay, but my brother didn't answer him. He just kept staring at the rearview mirror on his side. After a few seconds, he said something that my dad didn't fully understand at that moment. "Dad, something got on." My dad processed that he was dreaming half asleep. He didn't want to give it importance, but the child insisted, this time with a more disturbing tone. "Dad, there's a woman. She's peering in." My dad frowned. He took a quick glance. The rearview mirror saw nothing. "Go to sleep, son. We're almost there," he told him, wanting to calm him down. My brother continued looking in silence, clinging to the seat, but minutes later his voice broke in a scream. "There she is. She's peering in." This time my dad couldn't ignore it. He directed his gaze to the rearview mirror and for an instant thought he saw something. A shadow, a fleeting movement. Something with long hair that disappeared so quickly that he didn't know if he had really seen it or if it was the reflection of light on the highway. "Did you see her?" my brother asked with a tiny voice. My dad didn't respond. He didn't want to scare him more. But a strange sensation settled in his chest. If someone had really gotten on, he couldn't stop there. Not in that lonely stretch. He accelerated. The kilometers passed, and in the distance, he saw the lights of a gas station. He decided that he would check the cargo there just to make sure it was his imagination, just to make sure that no one was coming from behind. When they finally entered the service area and he began to reduce speed, something changed. The wind. The wind sounded different. A young man of no more than 18 years approached to receive them, but his dog, a gas station dog, accustomed to seeing cars and trucks all the time, reacted in a way that made my dad shudder. The animal began to bark, howl, as if it were seeing the devil himself in that truck. The gas station attendant, noticing, raised his hand and signaled to my dad to continue, not to stop. My dad, on the contrary, slowed down a bit, more confused about what was happening. The young man, seeing that he didn't understand, ran to the door of the trailer and held on with both hands, climbing up a bit of the step. "Don't stop, she already got on." My dad felt a chill run down his spine. "What? Who?" "Don't stop, boss. Keep going to the city, because if you stop, they'll never let you arrive." The boy shouted the last sentence with panic in his voice, but as he was getting down and running away, that's why my dad barely heard him completely. It wasn't necessary. What really convinced him was my brother's gaze, the pure terror in his eyes. My dad stepped on the accelerator without hesitation. He shot out of there. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He didn't slow down until he saw the lights of Coatzacoalcos in the distance. When he finally arrived at the base, he got down without saying anything. He didn't talk about the subject with anyone. He just walked to the back of the trailer box with a strange feeling in his chest. And then he saw it. Ash. Ash on the back of the trailer box, as if something else had gotten on it. The workers unloading the merchandise didn't notice anything, and if they did, they didn't say a word. My dad didn't mention it either. But that night was marked in my family's memory, not only because my brother had experienced something terrifying on his first trip, but because it was the last time he mentioned his dream of being a trailer driver like my dad. He never got on a trailer again, and never talked about the woman who peered in.
I'm not gonna lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head, and if you don't act now, that idea is gonna leave, or maybe someone's gonna take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need, and Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.
Beloved community, thank you for having made it this far, for staying expectant of the stories of this night that I hope you are enjoying. It's strange to say it, enjoying, but you know what I mean. Enjoying them as much as one can enjoy a good ghost story. I don't want to forget to remind you to subscribe to this space and leave us comments, thumbs up, a 5-star rating depending on where you listen to us. But it always helps us a lot to keep going, to continue bringing you these stories week after week. And who knows, maybe more and more. For now, it's time to continue. The rest is over. The intermission has come to an end, and it's time to move on. I hope you've caught your breath because from now on, we continue. This happened a few years ago, when I took my grandmother to the village where she was born. She hadn't returned there for a long time, since my father died, in fact, who used to take care of her. When that happened, my siblings and I took her with us to our house. She never showed any intention of returning. She never spoke of the village or the people she left behind. But that day was different. We were informed that Don Arturo, an old friend of hers, had passed away, and without hesitating for a second, she decided that she should be at his wake. The call came on a Thursday at 4 p.m., and by 4:30 a.m., we were on our way, she and I, to the village. The journey was neither short nor easy. The village where my grandmother was born was in a mountainous area, and the roads were not only dangerous because of their curves and narrow paths, but also because of the assaults that were said to occur in the most solitary stretches. There was talk of people coming down from small houses high in the hills to take advantage of those who were stranded, and that's why those who knew the road well always tried to travel during the day and without making unnecessary stops. The trip went without problems until, in a particularly closed curve, I suddenly felt that the car became unstable. The steering wheel began to swing from side to side, and I had to reduce speed until I came to a complete stop to check, feeling a pressure in my chest that became even stronger when I saw what had happened. A tire was completely flat. The sun was beginning to set, and on that road, I knew that being stranded meant one thing: danger. But when I looked at my grandmother expecting some reaction, I saw that instead of saying something to me or even looking at me, she simply folded her hands and began to pray. It annoyed me. I was there trying to think of a solution, and she was just praying. I leaned down to check the damage to somehow find a way to change the tire without the damn hydraulic jack that I didn't have. And that's when I heard the sound of an engine approaching very slowly. It was an extremely subtle sound, but clear. I stood up. I looked toward the road just in time to see a huge truck peeking around the curve. It stopped in the middle of the road. I couldn't see how many people were inside. The windows were completely tinted. Whoever it was stayed there, without moving, stopped in the middle of the road, just watching us. They stayed there for a whole minute that felt eternal to me. My grandmother kept praying. I didn't know what to do. My heart was beating very hard, and although I tried not to think about it, I was sure that at any moment they would get out of the truck. I had no idea who they were, but the way they were looking at us, the fact that they had stopped there, in the middle of a curve without any precaution, told me that it didn't mean anything good. Then, without warning, they turned around and disappeared the way they had come. I was paralyzed. I looked at my grandmother waiting for some explanation, some reaction, but she kept praying without looking up. I didn't want to say anything. I just wanted a car to pass by, for a patrol to pass by, anyone who could help us. But the road was empty. The sun was setting. The cold of the mountain was becoming more and more evident. "Grandma, if something happens, if they come back, you drive into the bushes," I said in a low voice, almost feeling ridiculous for saying it like that. She didn't respond. She murmured something I didn't understand and kept praying. Then another car appeared around the curve. It was small, completely opposite to the truck from a few minutes ago. It stopped right behind us, and after a few seconds, a very tall man got out of the driver's seat. He walked towards us calmly. "Do you need help?" he asked in a calm voice. I nodded, but without being entirely sure if I should trust him. However, when he opened the trunk of his car and took out tools, I felt immediate relief. He was a tire repairman. I don't know what they call it in your country, but it was someone who worked at a tire shop. Someone who was dedicated to fixing tires. Well, just the person we needed most at that moment. He didn't say anything else. He knelt by the damaged tire and began to work quickly, as if there was nothing strange about the situation. I could hardly believe it, but when I looked at my grandmother, I saw her watching him attentively, with the same type of look that someone has when they see someone they know. Then, as if he had felt her gaze, the man looked up and looked at her. She also remained silent for a moment before smiling with disbelief. "It can't be," he said. "You are the mother of—" My grandmother nodded. He sighed and wiped his hands. He told us that he had been a friend of my father many years ago. Earlier I was here in a neighboring town with a friend, but I don't know. I felt it was better to return early today. That's the only reason I passed by here at this hour, he told us. She didn't say anything else. He finished adjusting the tire and asked us to continue immediately. He drove behind us until we reached the village, making sure we didn't end up alone on the road again. When we finally parked, my grandmother kissed the image of St. Christopher that she had in her hands all that time, the patron saint of travelers, the saint of those who drive. Since that day, I carry with me an image of St. Christopher when I drive and a prayer from my grandmother. Because although this doesn't seem like a paranormal story to most people who listen to us, I know that something bigger than us took care of us that afternoon. Hello, community. Hello, Uriel. Thank you for doing what you do and giving voice to so many of our stories. Whether there's something paranormal in mine, I don't know. But here is this experience for you to have the final word. This happened exactly 2.5 years ago, when my brother and I were traveling by road. He was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. At that time, I still didn't have a license, so I just accompanied him on his first long trip, without our parents, just so he wouldn't die of boredom by doing me the favor of counting on my presence. Nothing more. We had to go to the state capital to resolve a procedure for his school, something unimportant, but that couldn't wait. The journey there was peaceful, without any setbacks, and the return seemed the same. We were talking, listening to music, enjoying the lonely road, the warm sun, the sunset. Then we came to a slope, not particularly steep, but enough for the engine to have to make a little more effort to climb. Nothing out of the ordinary until the car began to lose power. First, it was the music that suddenly cut off, then the engine that stalled without warning and turned off. From 1 second to the next, the car was completely off. We tried to start it again, but nothing responded, and the worst thing was that the slope was beginning to overcome us. My brother pressed the brake with all his strength, but the car didn't stop. Only with the handbrake did he manage to lighten the fall, but the vehicle continued to slide backward. It was as if the road was pushing us back. He managed to control the direction enough to get off the asphalt, and we went into a soft dirt embankment where we finally could stop the car. Relief came all at once. We hadn't crashed, we hadn't completely gone off the road, and above all, there was no car behind us. In other circumstances, that could have ended in a very serious accident. We looked at each other without saying anything, still with the fright on us. I felt dizzy with a strong desire to vomit, so I walked a few steps away to breathe while my brother looked for a bottle of water. And it was at that moment when we noticed it. When what makes me write to you, community, happened. I can't explain what we suddenly felt. It wasn't immediate, but something that was growing little by little. A sensation that filtered into the skin like a prick of discomfort, an anguish that crushed our backs. We both felt it. Something was not right. It wasn't just the fear of the accident, of having been left without brakes, the nervousness of being stopped on the highway. It was something else. And then, a few steps from us, we saw what we believe was causing us that feeling. About 10 or 12 meters from the car, near the edge of the embankment, there was a mound of earth that didn't fit with the rest of the landscape. It wasn't part of the road, nor was it a natural earth mound. It seemed recently disturbed and clumsily covered with a layer of fallen leaves. My brother saw it first, and without saying anything, he advanced with caution. It didn't make sense to do it, but he still lifted the tip of his shoe. He moved aside some dry leaves. Nothing more was needed. Under the fallen leaves, peering out from the loose earth, was a pale, very thin, motionless hand. My brother didn't wait a second longer. He immediately turned and ran to the car. I barely reacted and followed him without thinking. He took an emergency reflective triangle from the car and left it beside the highway. Then we jumped into the car. He turned the key and the engine started without any problem, as if it had never failed, as if nothing of the above had happened. We drove without stopping until we reached the city, still trembling. When we finally found a place to park, my brother took out his phone and called the police. He gave the exact location of where we had been, as detailed as he could, including the detail of the emergency triangle. We didn't care if they could trace the call or ask us questions. We just wanted to make sure someone found that person. Over time, many people have told us that what happened was a simple coincidence, that we just stopped there because that it was bad luck with the car and nothing more. But I don't believe it. That car had never failed before and never failed again afterward. What happened that night was exactly at that site. It forced us to stop, to see, to know that someone was there. And although I don't know if what happened was the work of destiny or something more, if there's something I'm sure of, it's that that person is no longer alone. And since that day, with the hope that somehow we did the right thing, I pray for them without fail. Every night. Every night.
McDonald's se une al universo de Minecraft y Grimace Birdie y Hamburglar aparecieron en el overworld. Ahora por tiempo limitado puedes llevarte uno de los 6 coleccionables de McDonald's with a Minecraft Movie Meal. Cuando eliges entre una Big Mac o una orden de 10 McNuggets con la Spicy Nether Flame Sauce. Ahora disponible en McDonald's. En McDonald's participantes por tiempo limitado. A Minecraft Movie, solo en cines.
I'm not gonna lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head, and if you don't act now, that idea is gonna leave, or maybe someone's gonna take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need, and Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.